Hello guys, and welcome back to the How to Animate YouTube channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be continuing on with this animation. So if you missed part 1, go back and check that out. So this is just rough blocking of some fight moves. I've shot some reference up here that I'm roughly following. And in the last episode we started adding some smear frames here, and I explained how those work. So we're going to continue on and have her jump up and do some spin attacks here. Okay, so I'm just going to check the general trajectory of her hips coming through. Okay, so she's coming through on quite a steep arc. Okay, so I'm going to start putting in this next pose. Okay, so at this point she's still going to be stretching up. Okay, and slightly turning into this attack here. And the challenge with anything that spins is Euler. So Euler happens when two axes cross, and the computer doesn't quite understand what to do with that, so you'll have your character kind of flipping as it tries to interpolate the in-betweens. So the advantage of doing it this way by drawings is we have a lot more control. I'm still going to be very, very careful not to push the rotation so far that when the computer does start helping, that it's going to be broken. Okay, so this is the pose I come up with. So nice and dynamic. Yeah, I think that's going to work. So what we're going to do next is, I'm thinking we're going to do a double cut. Have this one come through, and then a larger one come through towards the landing. So it's going to be like a spinning jump attack. And I apologise if you can hear birds in the background. It's a lovely hot summer's day here in England, and yeah, I've got the windows wide open because it's like a sauna in here, so I apologise for the background noise. Okay, so let's put the next pose in. I guess this will be also the top of the apex. Yeah, I would imagine this would be the top of the apex. So this is the highest point of the jump, so I need to bear that in mind. So at this point we're going to start bringing this leg up into more of a tuck position. So what I'm thinking is actually the top of the apex here. This will be our main anticipation to get into the double cut coming down. Because that makes more sense than trying to do it any other place. So we're going to make this a bit more of a squash pose, I think. Okay, I'm just going to reset everything on the spine at this point because it's all getting a little bit tangled up. So just to keep everything clean, I've just set everything back to 0 just so I can repose everything on the spine. Okay, so I've started making a bit of progress on this pose. I've just brought up a motion trail to track the hips here just to make sure everything's doing what it's supposed to. So what I'm looking for is, okay, this is our stretch pose here, and I think this pose here needs to be a bit higher. So we're starting to draw this kind of arc coming around. Okay, towards the top of the apex here. I'm trying to build a bit more of a tuck pose up the top here. So I still want her kind of looking down towards the target, I suppose. Okay, so I'm just trying to find a nice pose for this. This might take a little while. Okay, this is the pose I went for in the end. It flows quite nicely from the rest. I would like just to modify this back arm. If I scrub through here and you watch this arm come through. Okay, it would be nice here to drag it, I think. So I'm going to add a little bit of drag just to the arm, just to get this kind of shape coming all the way through. Okay, and then I'm also going to bring it back a little bit for this anticipation here as well. Okay, I'm just going to check edge alignments as well. Okay, so that's working quite well from this angle as well. Great, so this is going to be the top of our apex here. During the next bit we're going to have her swing through with this arm, in fact both arms. Okay, so she's going to rotate her body into this to start attacking down. She's then going to do a spin and then land. Okay, so I'm going to start putting those poses in now. Okay, so with a bit of tinkering I managed to come up with this. So I'll just scrub through slowly so you can see what's going on. So she comes through, okay, jumps, and we've got the first slash in. It's just over a frame at the moment, so that is going to need an in-between just to define that, but that'll work fine. One thing I would like to do, now we've got this line of action starting to come through, is just to lean her over a little bit during this pose in particular, just follow the line of action. So what we're going to do now is try and get another slash coming through on the landing. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is another smear frame coming through. It's going to be quite a quick action coming down for this attack, so I'm going to put this in now. So we're going to have her continue to rotate through. Okay. And this foot is going to be starting to lead the action. So bring her down. Okay, I'm just going to check line of action. I think she needs to come through just a little bit more. So I'm just going to move her forward. Okay, scrub through. That's going to work. Be nice to delay this foot even more and rotate it back so it's dragging along. Okay, that's flowing quite well. I need to figure out what to do with this arm. Okay, so it's just come through, it's done the strike. I think at this point it would still be coming back, sort of slowing out of that strike. Maybe just start bending it a little bit and maybe just rotating it up. Okay, so we're getting ready for this arm to come down in a very powerful move. So I'd also like to just really sort of push this C shape here coming down. Okay, I'm going to start stretching her up a little bit in the body as well. And we could also do the same for this arm. Starting to come through, just sort of lag behind. So this is the pose I've created for the anticipation to the next strike. I decided to get rid of this coming through as a strike because I'd have to twist her chest into that, which then would make that quite difficult. So just to keep it simple, it's going to be a single strike coming through with this arm here. So it flows quite nicely, so I'll just scrub through. 1, 2. So drawing this line of action all the way around, especially with this blade here coming through. Okay, we've got another quite extreme pose here. Let's get as much power as we can into this strike. So the plan is, what I'd like to do is continue on through and have her kind of spin really low to the floor. Then I'd want to go back to the reference. There's quite a nice bit here, quite like this pose, and then the cut underneath. It's quite nice. So I think what I'm going to do is have her come through like this. Okay, then she's going to stay quite low for the follow through for this, then follow up into this kind of pose, and then we can go ahead and do that strike, double strike, bang bang. I quite like that as a finish. Spin, stab, stab, and then we'll go back to the idle pose. So that's the general plan. So okay, we need to finish off this strike. So we've already started cutting down. Okay, it's anticipation. So we want to keep her momentum flowing forward and coming through rotation. So start bringing it down. Yeah, start bringing this foot through as well, because it's going to have to land in a second. Alright, so this is the pose I've gone for. Okay, so we are going to need an in-between here to define this. It's quite an extreme motion. Okay, this is what I got for this next pose. Okay, I'm still not totally happy with that pose there. It's not really working. I need to figure something else for that. Quite happy with this one. I'm thinking that the momentum keeps coming around. So that's what we got so far. So it comes up, through, round. So drawing this arc coming through, I quite like the idea of, and having her low to the ground throughout this spin, and then rising up into this kind of almost block pose. Quite like that pose there. So I'm thinking that might work. I'm going to do a little bit more work on this breakdown here, because it's not quite flowing properly yet. So I managed to figure out a different in-between for that. It's working a lot better. Okay, so it's this. So it's a little bit closer to this pose as opposed to this pose. I think what was going wrong before is I was basically doing this exact same pose, just a bit lower. So there was no sort of momentum coming through and down, and sort of dragging that arm behind. But this is starting to flow a bit better now. Right, so the next pose I'd like to define is actually this kind of block one after she spins. So obviously it is going to be facing this direction, and the reason for that is I just want a bit of help from the computer just to actually get her around here nice and cleanly. And yeah, so I think I'm going to start putting this pose in. I'm going to rotate her body around this way just to make sure that the computer knows, okay, we are going in this direction. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead and put in this pose. I had to actually mirror the reference because her legs were the wrong way around. So this is the block pose as she comes up. So basically we need to go from here up to here. So we need to keep her momentum moving around in this direction. Okay, and then she can come up. So she's going to come down, round and up, all in one nice arc. I kind of need the computer's help because this is quite an extreme rotation. So I'm hoping that the computer's going to do a good job of figuring out roughly what's going on. So I'm just going to drag across. And let's see what we got. Okay, I'm just going to run the Euler filter on everything apart from the actual hip, because if I run the Euler filter, she's going to start rotating back the opposite direction. Okay, so this is what the computer's given us now. So it's not too bad. There's some strange rotation, especially in the knees and stuff, but it's definitely something we can work with here. So I think we're gonna go with like 26, say, as a starting point. So I'm just going to save off 26, bring it back, just bring back 34 as well for now. We need to try and create a breakdown that kind of flows. So I think the first thing to do is just make her lower in general. So I probably need it even lower than that, just to bring it round. Okay, so something like that's okay. Sort these knees out. Alright, so I've just moved her forward throughout this entire section. It's starting to flow a bit better now. I think it was just a little bit tight just to get her around. So it's starting to get there. I'm just going to take a look at this arm here. Okay, so this is actually the arm that does the blocking. So we actually need to bring that up at kind of like a straight angle, I would imagine. So maybe a bit more like that. Alright, so this is what we got now. So it's starting to come together. Okay, so yeah, I think what I'm going to do now is just add another in between this, just to get a little bit more force into this block. Because I kind of want it to be almost like a punch coming up. So I need just another frame where her body's twisting into it, but it's kind of still back. Just to make it clear, this is like a block up to the head, and then from there we can go ahead and do the cuts and stuff. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put that in between in. It's starting to read a bit better now. So, like I said, it's kind of just getting her body around a bit quicker. Okay, so we can come through and hit up like this. So from here, I'd actually like to do overshoot pose and then have her settle. Just give the audience a little bit of time just to catch up. So far it's been very spinny and big, so it'd be nice at this point if she comes through, bang, hits with this. We're going to bring her whole body kind of forward and then have her settle back. Okay, just to give... Okay, so let's do an overshoot for this. So we've got the equivalent of a punch here coming through, bang. Okay, so this would probably be our actual final pose that we rest in. So I'm just going to set this at 26. So we want to carry all this momentum forward. Okay, stretch her as far as we can. I'm just going to see if I can raise her foot up a little bit more as well. Okay, we'll try and avoid stretching that leg out until it locks, because otherwise we're going to get a horrible pop. So I'm going to get her rotating a little bit more into this. See if we can get this arm up a little bit more. Okay, I'm just going to stretch very slightly into this as well. Okay, because the momentum's coming around this direction, I'm just going to give her arm a little bit of overshoot as well. Okay, a little bit in the wrist. So this is just little nudges here and there just to keep her generally moving in this direction. It's basically the same pose as the other one. Okay, so we we scrub between 25 and 26 now, you see that's starting to become an overshoot. So I think we could probably go up a little bit higher. Cool, so that's going to work as an overshoot. Okay, so from here we could probably do a bit of a settle as well. So we've got an overshoot into like an ease out. So I'm just going to drag this along. Okay, I'm going to find a pose that's similar, so maybe 31 would do. And just drag everything back just to give a little bit of cushion. Like that. Okay guys, I've been doing this for about an hour now. Got about as many poses as I did in the last video out. Some of you might be wondering, okay, you know, you've been doing this for 2 hours and this is really how far you've got. And kind of working this method, you're kind of front loading your work, okay? So if I was to animate this kind of on spline and try and work everything out that way, you know, I'd probably get further with it, but at the same time I'd have a lot more of a nightmare at the end cleaning it up. So I'm trying to get this to a state where I can just do a timing pass on it, and then I can just go straight into final with it, basically. It'll be pretty much done when I start adding in-betweens and stuff. Okay, so the plan for the next video is to actually complete this blocking out. I'm planning on just doing a couple of cuts like that, and maybe one big stab just to finish, and then get her back to an idle pose over here. And then we can go into a timing pass, which is called first pass, which is where I start spacing out everything. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, and I'll see you in the next one.